Today we are going to be talking about commercial property here in Hampshire, and I have two esteemed figures who are going to join me in the conversation. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Denise Bull. I am Head of Commercial Property for Dutton Gregory Solicitors, and I've been a commercial property lawyer since I qualified back in 1989, so I calculate that's 32 years.
I'm Alex Hurn, one of the co-founding directors of Sillence Hurn Builder Consultancy, where we do all things surveying related to commercial property, so dilapidations, building surveys and project management.
Can you sum up how the past year has been for you and your colleagues?
It's been an up and down year for commercial property generally in the sector. Obviously, there's been a hell of a lot of change and demand moving from more office and retail traditional over to industrial sectors. The workplace now has changed dramatically. A lot of disruption has been caused in probably mostly the retail sector, where obviously shops have been closed for the majority of the year. And this has obviously left a lot of distressed tenants and also landlords.
And Denise, how's this impacted your work?
We were beginning to move to a more paperless way of working, and on the 23rd of March last year it had to happen overnight. So being that commercial property is very much deeds and documents orientated, it's been a huge learning curve, but we were well set up for IT, so that was very lucky, and we've had to develop new ways of working. I think the biggest challenge we've had in terms of actually dealing with transactions has been how hard it has been to get land registry to keep the kind of registrations of title flowing. So we're seeing delays of over a year for some transactions, which is hugely problematic.
When COVID first arrived, there was a lot of transactions, mid-transaction that either got held over or cancelled. So a lot of the transactional services we were doing, like pre-acquisition surveys, scheduled to condition, kind of diminished really as confidence kind of came back up, and there was a bit of a roadmap. Some developer clients that we work with who were looking at opportunities where they could potentially purchase commercial property under the usual sort of value, undervalued either at auction or direct to vendor purchases, and so the survey traffic has picked back up. But I mean, one of the most active service areas for us over the last couple of years has been dilapidations, and obviously has increased because of lockdown and leases being ended, distressed tenants needing to break leases, and that has caused some interesting discussions really around sort of the diminution in value and Section 18, and a landlord isn't going to spend money on a property which they don't know what the future is for it, and if there's going to be a tenant at the end. So there's kind of been a big kind of sort of supersession argument for nearly all of our dilapidations claims.
Yeah, we've seen, similar to Alex, the dilapidation side of things. And in fact, personally, as a firm, working with Alex and his firm, we've managed to argue very successfully against two dilapidation claims recently. However, my biggest part of my work is portfolio management, so landlord and tenant work, and I've been busy helping my clients to get out of properties and to kind of jig their network. So it's been a lot of dealing with serving break notices on landlords, having landlords have break notices served on them, dealing with re-gearing leasehold premises so that we've changed the rents and the terms, that sort of thing. So, you know, it's slightly the other side of what Alex does in the dilapidations and the surveying side, and it's working to help people to sort of rationalise their property investments, if you like.
Was there kind of a panic, or is everyone quite calm and just wants to talk it through? At
the outset of the pandemic, there was a lot of stress and anxiety and panic, really. I've got to say, Denise might have another view on this, but it's the government have been quite good in relation to the guidance they've given for guiding commercial landlords and tenants around rent negotiations and if rent should be paid or not. Early on in the first pandemic, we partnered with an organisation called Save the High Street, who have basically provided a support network for sort of individual high street businesses. And we were on their panel for sort of assisting with rent negotiations and dilapidations points. But a lot of the advice we were giving in the end, I mean, was basically just pick the phone up to the landlord, let him know that you're struggling, show him your balance sheet, show him that obviously this is a cost that you can't afford. If you want the tenant to stick around and work with them and get through the pandemic together, then really it just needs big give and take from both sides.
Did people do that and take you up on that advice?
A portion did, yeah. I mean, it's personality. Different personalities react in different ways, and to be fair to landlords, I mean, they've got costs as well. It's a business for them. It's not that all landlords are really wealthy and are cash-rich businesses. A lot of retail landlords and property owners are pension fund sort of individuals, and they don't have large reserves of cash.
Denise, what support were you able to give?
A lot of the time it was basically being able to be there if they picked the phone up. And interestingly, yes, Alex says that the government were good in issuing guidance. Actually, from my point of view, they issued the guidance that we'd already been giving for probably 2 or 3 months. I think they were able to kind of consolidate what the market was actually doing and make it more public so that it was more obvious to the wider market. Certainly, the support that I've been able to give to my biggest clients is basically helping them to have those difficult conversations, particularly, as Alex says, the small pension funds where maybe they've got 2 or 3 properties, but they need that money to be coming in. So if people had received furlough money and business loans, it was only really right and fair that some of that money should be going back into the market to keep it circulating. You know, if you cut off all of the supply of rent and other monies that are being paid, then the whole thing is a vicious circle and you end up with nothing. So it was very much encouraging people to have those conversations.
So Alex, it's very easy for someone like me on the outside to say, well, the solution in the short and long term for commercial property is they've all got to adapt. And everyone just says that you've got to be adapt, you've got to be flexible. What does that mean? What are, in your opinion, the challenges for commercial property in the short to long term?
I think the office is going to look very different now for a lot of firms, and I think where a lot of firms have been working from home and having their workforce work remotely for the past 18 months, they're going to and invest in technologies to instigate that. They're going to start thinking, do we need 100 grand rent on our balance sheet every year? Can that be 50 grand? So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in whether there's office space being carved up into smaller suites, the rise of small service providers, i.e. Regis and the co-working spaces, more regional offices rather than sort of big headquarter offices. I think there was an article last week that HSBC have cut their executive floor in their London office, and now the executives have to hot desk. So I think there's going to be more and more of that, and also there's going to be a rise of office space which is going to again be converted to residential, which has relaxed planning rights in respect to permitted development, and that gives another option for landlords to explore. And on the retail side, I think that I don't think there's a death of the high street. I think people are going to get back out this year. Obviously, there's going to be a shortage of holidays and people going abroad, and there's really a lot of money in the economy at the moment. A lot of people that have been working throughout have probably saved more. They're going to want to get out and spend that. And the high street, in my opinion, might become more of a service-driven area, or hospitality-driven, or experience-driven. I think that's a potential trend in the near future.
Are your clients, Alex, seeing opportunity? Are they approaching the situation with optimism or positivity, or are they kind of sat on the fence and still seeing the way it's all going to pan out for the rest of the year?
I think everyone's optimistic now. We're coming out the back of everything. Things are opening back up, and there are opportunities around. That's for all businesses, whether you're landlords or tenants. What
are the legal implications? Where do you come in?
We obviously are the ones who make the transactions happen once the surveyors and the agents and what have you have got their heads together and decided how it's going to go. For us, it's about being imaginative and how we document what people want, and making sure that what we can offer is actually fit for purpose and fit for what they need. My experience of the commercial property market over the years has been it's incredibly adaptable, really very flexible, and generally speaking, it gets on and does things. I mean, we've got a new code of practice from RICS, the RICS code, which came into place last September. It's probably not really been that focused on because people have been so busy firefighting and trying to work out what's going on, but it actually actively encourages landlords and tenants to kind of get together and work together. I completely agree with Alex that the marketplace, in particular high streets, are going to be more experience driven. You know, you're going to have more people living locally, working locally. The office space is going to look different, although I'm not completely convinced that it will be smaller in size. I think there'll probably be more hubs. The actual space per person is probably going to get bigger with social distancing and all the other things that will probably be more normal. So I think there's plenty of work to do. And in terms of the legal offering, it's about us being there to be able to put a proper legal framework around the kind of imaginative future that the commercial property market will have.
What would be your advice to the owners, investors and managers of commercial property in the months to come?
All service providers I talk to, Denise might hopefully will nod at this, but all service providers are extremely busy at the moment. So I would suggest to all clients at the moment that just to plan ahead. Don't expect to pick up the phone and expect something to be done in a couple of days' time. I think everything needs to kind of be thought out really for the next sort of year, 18 months now. There's a lot of change in legislation for building regs coming up and compliance issues in mixed-use buildings. Obviously, there's going to be increased fire safety issues with Grenfell and sprinklers and fire safety around that. So if you've got a retail or commercial on the ground and first and flats above, there could be implications that need to be sought after as well.
Very much similar to what Alex says. Don't leave it to the last minute. If you want us to serve notices to terminate leases, if you want us to serve renewal notices, if you want to get those kind of relationships, you know, if you've got a lease that's holding over, get a Section 25 notice served if you're a landlord. If you're a tenant and you want a new lease or you want to get out, do let us know, because we can't just deal with it at the drop of a hat. And there are certain investigations that we have to do to make sure we get the legals right. The other thing is, don't be scared to be innovative and don't be scared to do deals that are maybe slightly outside the box, because we can make it happen if you tell us in plenty of time.
Oh, that sounds intriguing. What do you mean, Denise? Deals out? You have to give us an example of that.
Well, you know, I've got a client at the moment and they've just bought a property, a freehold of a property that's got a tenant, several tenants, and they're trying to get their tenants into new leases so that they all end at the same time. And they've given me some instructions, and we've sort of looked at doing surrenders and re-grants and, you know, what have you. And it's actually just being imaginative about how you can change the way your current tenants occupy the building without actually throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Lawyers and imagination are not two words that people would automatically put together, but you have, Denise. And on a very positive note, all is left for me to ask is, Alex, if people want to get in contact with you, how should they do it?
My email, alex@sillencehurn.co.uk. That's Sillence with 2 L's. Everyone always forgets that. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and our website is sillencehurn.co.uk. So feel free to drop me a line.
And Denise, if anyone has any legal questions, queries, or wants to know about their commercial property and what it can do, how should they contact you?
So you can email me, it's d.bull@duttongregory.co.uk, 2 T's in Dutton, and they can call me on 02380 213294, or go on the website. All our information on how to contact us is there. I also am fairly active on LinkedIn, but I'm not quite as good as Alex.
Thank you ever so much, both of you, for your time. I know you're having very busy lives at the moment, and I shall let you crack on with them.
Thank you very much, Robin.
Cheers, Robin.